So everyone is talking about Splatoon right now, but everybody seems to be focusing mainly on the multiplayer, and, well, I don't really blame them since that is the meat of the game after all. But what about that single-player mode? Like, I'm sure you remember that trailer that Nintendo released a couple of months back. It looked sick. Really sick. Now say you're somebody that's not really into online multiplayer and you're more of a single player kind of guy. Is Splatoon still the game for you? Is there enough here in the single player mode to make it worth a buy? Well, we're gonna find out if the single player holds up on its own. Now, firstly, the single player mode is bizarrely tucked away in the corner. It's almost hidden, like you have to go into this manhole in the corner of the main lobby to access it. Upon doing so, you're greeted by Captain Cuttlefish, who explains that the Octarian army stole the Zapfish, which is the source of energy in the Inkling world. Here you land in the hub world, and from the hub world you're able to access a handful of stages. You actually don't have to do any of them in a specific order, because you're able to pick whichever one you want to do first. In the later hub worlds, just getting to the levels is a challenge in itself, because the hub worlds have very intricate and obstacle course-like designs. And not only that, but the entrances are also invisible, so it'll require you to splatter a bunch of ink onto it to unveil it. While in the first two hub worlds it's really easy, it actually becomes quite a challenge hunting for the levels later on. Each level in Splatoon single player is a linear obstacle course with enemies and obstacles scattered throughout. Like the multiplayer, the fundamental mechanics of the game are widely the same. You can shoot ink and then swim in the mess that you've created. What makes the single player mode so different is that instead of using these mechanics to defeat another team, covering as much ground as you can, you'll instead be using them to platform and to navigate obstacle courses. Each level is split up into a bunch of separate chunks. Complete one section and then you'll blast off to the next. It's not very hard to figure out that this game draws a lot of inspiration from the level design of Mario Galaxy, and I don't mean like in a Sonic Lost World way either, where they just, wanted to experiment with gravity. Now, while your character can't really jump very high, you can pull off longer jumps with the momentum that you gain from swimming in the ink. Combining this with the ability to swim up walls creates a high level of freedom in which you can navigate the terrain. One thing the game does really well is introducing a brand new game mechanic each and every stage. For example, there's the sponges. These things will inflate as you shoot them, which will turn them into a big platform, and if an enemy shoots them, they'll shrink back down, and that'll cause you to fall off. The way the game teaches you each new game mechanic follows the very classic Nintendo way of show, don't tell. So instead of having a pop-up or a character just explaining you how each new mechanism works, you're first given it in a hazard-free situation, and that allows you to interact with it without the risk of dying. Then, of course, as the level progresses, you're faced with using the mechanisms in much more challenging scenarios. Thanks to this style of tutorial, or rather their lack of tutorial, the game remains a slick, unobstructed ride the entire campaign. Never in the game did I really feel like I was waiting for something, like waiting for a character to shut up, or waiting for a dialogue box to go away, or waiting for a platform to come back. Splatoon has excellent pacing that'll keep your attention and will never make you wait for something. One of my favorite stage gimmicks is invisible terrain. Some levels will have entire section of the stage completely invisible, and you'll have to splatter around some paint to figure out where you're even able to walk. Dealing with the enemies takes a very interesting twist on the combat versus platforming formula. Much like Rayman 3, the enemies for the most part offer hazards via projectiles, giving you something to dodge while you return fire yourself. Now, while a lot of platformers have combat and platforming fairly separated, in Splatoon you'll often be doing both at the exact same time. And it feels great! The control scheme is dynamic, and switching between forms to go from intricate platforming to taking out enemies feels flawless. The level design itself is easily on par with that of Mario Galaxy. The levels are constantly delivering brand new mechanics that get more puzzling, challenging, and fun as the stage goes on. And of course, in the later stages, you'll start to see these mechanics all combine with each other. Again, it follows very closely to the formula of the 3D Mario titles, but exploring this similar level design through this new character that has radically different abilities makes for a fresh and unique experience. Now, that's not to say all of the levels are great. There's a handful that stray away from the Mario Galaxy design in favor of just taking the multiplayer stages and somehow passing it off as a single-player stage. In these stages, you'll battle the Octolings. They're Octarians with the exact same abilities as the Inklings. It's not as exciting as it sounds. While they can swim in their own ink as well, they can be wiped out just as easily as any regular enemy. The level still follows the get from point A to point B rules, so it just really turns into get to the other side of the map rather than explore this awesome obstacle course. Some of these levels also have ink strikes constantly being thrown down at you. Again, it's really not as cool as it sounds. It's much more of an annoyance than anything else, and it just doesn't really add much to the gameplay other than, oh great, I gotta move for a second now. Now, while these stages are but a tiny fraction of the almost 30 levels Splatoon's campaign offers, I still really wish they are omitted in favor of the Mario Galaxy-styled levels. Hidden within each stage is a scroll that features ancient artwork. These contain vague references to the history of the Splatoon world, and some of them are pretty funny to read. While it's not required to beat the game, collecting them all is a nice distraction that'll add an hour or two to the campaign. You'll often find them hidden in secret areas, which adds a level of exploration to each stage. The boss battles are a lot of fun. Again, they follow the Mario approach, figure out a pattern and solve it 3 times, with the pattern getting more challenging each time. And while I won't spoil what the final fight is like, I will say that Splatoon has an incredible and very challenging final boss fight. Splatoon's single-player campaign holds up very well on its own. There's only one big problem. I was able to finish the entire thing in just under 4 hours. While it's incredibly solid, it's just not very long. Because of this, it's really hard to recommend Splatoon just for the single player. If you're not very interested in the online, try to find it half off or something. Maybe wait until it goes on sale somewhere. That is, if you're only interested in the single player. The online is tons of fun and will devour countless hours of your time, making it easily worth full price. Splatoon's single player is a unique and incredible experience. I just wish it were longer. I can easily say that it definitely left me wanting more. A lot more. I would love to see a sequel to the game focusing more heavily on the single player. Make it the length of a Mario game, then we'll be talking. Unfortunately, until then, Splatoon single player is really just a distraction from the multiplayer. But I'll be damned because it is one of the best distractions I've ever played. I just wish it were longer.